Hi guys, my name's Justin Lepridge. You're on here today with another cello lesson for you guys. I'm very excited because I use it all the time and it really helps me with improvement. And it's a technique that you want to play anything higher level. It's also just once you get the hang of it. And I'm talking about now, you might not have thought about thumb position if you didn't know much about cello before you got interested in cello. Cellists don't always play down here using just the four fingers. Sometimes we do introduce the thumb, kind of like a movable capo, where we can kind of use the thumb to be in lieu of a normal open string, and then use fingerings that we would otherwise use in first position, but with the extra very useful because one, it helps us play in difficult keys. Two, it helps us not have to shift around as much because we have an extra. Three, it helps us be able to transpose our ideas more easily for the cello. And so what that means is that it's sort of essential when you're playing high up and you don't have as much of a frame. So I find thumb position really useful for improv where, if I get high and I'm kind of stuck, it can be harder to come back down, but I can just... Now, even in a simpler, more basic context, thumb position is just going to be a great way for you to start getting used to certain scale patterns. It's just going to be a way for you to play higher. And if you're a little bit adventurous with it, it can be a great way to help you play patterns that would otherwise be too tricky that are lower because you can use your thumb. Like I said, you get an extra finger with the thumb, so it makes things that would otherwise be trickier a lot. All right, so that's the why and the what. Now let's talk about the how. And bear in mind that when you start learning to use thumb position, you will have to develop a callus. So don't rush yourself too much with this. Start with just 10 minutes in a day. Start, until you start to kind of feel it. But you will have, because your thumb is always going to bar two strings and have to push down. So I personally, you can see the creases perhaps of here just above the bottom of my nail, and then here crease. Some people will want to use the crease as a natural reference point, but it's already such thin, that doesn't necessarily make the most sense for comfort. And then conversely too, it can be tempting to roll off of the thumb in an effort to avoid. So you want to find that natural point where it's already good fleshy skin that has the potential to build a good callus. You're just going to want to have to drill that over repetition. So usually start by talking about thumb position is to start with the octave harmonic. So every string, because the string is shortened by half, is an octave higher, because that's what an octave is. And we're able to play harmonics. What the harmonic is actually doing that causes it to ring out an octave higher without actually pressing this is it's segmenting the string without completely muting. So when we play a note normally, this part of the string doesn't really ring. Now, if you really listen for it, every time you press your finger down, you're hearing two notes. But usually it's so light that we can't really hear it. But when we just lightly touch the string, we're not choking up the resonance of the lower part of the string. In fact, we're allowing both halves to resonate. So you can see most clearly in the C string that when I'm playing harmonic, both halves of the string are resonating and here is not. Isn't that neat? So we actually not only are playing an octave higher because it's choked up, we're actually still resonating the entire. We're just causing it to skip that fundamental because it's segmenting the string in two. And every harmonic works like this. This is a little bit of a side note about harmonics, but every harmonic works like this. For example, on this harmonic, we can see that it divided into three. I thought that was really neat when I learned about it. So anyways, we're going to use the harmonic to find our note. And the reason we're not going to want to use it as a crutch, i.e. always relying on the harmonic to find our note, is that we're going to be slightly off of position. So one thing that you might notice if you put your finger up to play our harmonic is that if you put it right down there, it's not in tune anymore. So part of this is because you can touch slightly different moments and it's still going to cause that harmonic to ring out. so you don't have to be as precise with a harmonic, at least the simpler ratio harmonics, like 2 to 1, like an octave. You don't have to be so. What that means is that it's good to use the harmonic to find generally where the note is, but you're still going to want to put your thumb down and find those contact points with the thumb and build up the calluses. Now, other than that, there's one other thing that's different about thumb position, in addition to the fact that you're bringing your thumb up, and that's the fact that we almost never use fourth finger. Sometimes people may reach around. I certainly do. I have big enough hands to make it work, but it's a little bit awkward. And so primarily what we're doing is we're using violin fingering. So violinists only use fourth finger if they're going to the fourth, basically where, first finger, fourth position is for cellists. So they're doing, their hands are angled. So they do 1 and then 2, low 2 or high 2, and then 3, 4, or the open string. And this is the same fingering we're going to do. So it is helpful to just practice playing a scale with the thumb position fingering with your fingers really wide, just so you get that. And then when you want to make the jump up the octave, at least you already know the fingerings. So that's how I would begin with thumb position, is start by just finding that different. Then bring your thumb up, play the harmonic, then find where the note actually is. Get the strings in tune. That's your home base. That's your new open string. And then try doing the scale. So a few things to note. One is you're going to have to use very different bow for this. You're going to have your bow closer to the bridge. You're going to maybe even be using a little. And you're going to really have to control the tendency for the strings to choke up and be a little extra whiny the higher you go. So having a little bit more of like a stable bow stroke is also. The other thing that's a little bit different is that sometimes your wrist is going to come up a little bit and you're going to have to find where the hand. Ultimately, I'm a fan of movable techniques. I'm a fan of adaptive techniques, as it were. I don't think that you should just have one locked in position, but I think you should know how to use your hand to dance around the phantom or imaginary fretboard that's on the cello. And that's going to be the best approach, because every single interval is different. Every shift, depending on even whether it's loud or soft, is going to make a difference. Depending on whether it's articulated or really, smooth, is going to make. Everything about cello is adaptive, so the thumb position is no different, and you might not always have that straight wrist that we can kind of get otherwise. But for the most part, you're going to find that as you move up, it actually makes a lot of sense to just lift the thumb up and have it join the rest. Once you get more comfortable with thumb position, once you get, I think, above fourth position, you can start just by default having your thumb there, even if you're only using your fingers, because 1, 2, you're building the habit for the hand position, and 3, you kind of just need thumb position. Like it's good practice. Thumb position is really helpful for playing thirds, which otherwise you have to shift every single note in. Thumb position is just really helpful for making things that sound difficult and maybe even look difficult actually be easy, because a lot of music is actually only in one position. So the tendency to overuse the harmonic as a crutch becomes a problem when it's actually best to have your thumb a whole step lower or a fourth lower. That's actually going to be a lot easier to play. But if you haven't practiced it, then it's not going to. But it is going to be impossible to play. So choose your poison. Impossible, difficult. Usually difficult, I think, is better because you can just work on it. All right, guys, so this was sort of a very brief intro to thumb position. All I want you guys to do with this episode is to start getting used to it at all. Start experimenting with it at all. And the finer details of how to use thumb position, how to conceptualize different hand shapes, we're going to get to all of that in later lessons. But you have to start by just familiarizing yourself with thumb position. Remember, it only seems hard because until you have the frame of reference for the cello, everything just seems vaguely. But the reasons why it's easier are that your fingers are closer together, your arms at a better angle, more natural angle, and it's easier to just play quickly once your finger, because your fingers are. So don't hesitate. Start now. Get used to it. It'll be really fun and it'll save you hassle down the line. So I really hope you guys start doing it and make it easy. Anyways, once again, I'm Justin Leopard. This has been a production with Higher Hertz. Please subscribe. For videos of my performances, you can see me on the Vagabond Cellist. But for now, that's all. We'll see you in the next video.